Charlie, could you have a look that it's popping up on the UQCS page? Just see if the stream's there. It does say I'm live. Oh, just the UQCS YouTube. Yeah, just see if it's like popping up there. All right, test, 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 test. Can you hear me through the thing? Test. All right, perfect. Huh? Sorry?
Are you speaking in the slides?
No, you sit there. I switched the slides. Yep. Okay. Yep. I'll stay here. Okay. Hello, hello. Okay. Can everyone here hear me? All right. All is good. I'm not too loud. I'm not going to scream in anyone's face. Cool. See some familiar faces here. Thanks for coming. How are we all? Everyone good? Assessment not too heavy? Everyone okay? Happy with their midsems? If you've sat your midsems, apparently they're running till like week 9 or 10, which is not even a midsem anymore. But anyways, welcome to Career Launchpad. This talk was recorded last year, but we decided to, I guess, like re-record it because the audio quality was pretty bad. You could not hear anything, and also we increased the time this talk runs for, so we can cover like more grounds, make it a little bit more general, talk about more things, and hopefully at least the goal from this is you walk out of this presentation knowing exactly what you need to do, and know, I guess, exactly what's going on with the industry. So, I guess, well, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Zain. I'm in my 3rd year of my Bachelor of Engineering and Master of Engineering. I'm currently the president of UQCS. I previously was the treasurer, and I was in the general committee before that. Some of you might know, I went through the Optiva Future Focus program last year, and I ended up kind of like breaking the firm's history by becoming the first person to be given 2 offers from the program. And I'll be starting with quant research this summer in Sydney. So very excited to, I guess, work on some trading systems. Just like a couple of days ago, I signed with a startup called Eucalyptus, who just got sold off for $1 billion. And I'll mostly be working with like recommender algorithms, like a bit more on the researchy side, trying to like use AI in marketing type thing. Also, a bit of a side quest, did an insolvency law internship at SV Partners. That's a position I got through a case competition where I literally just got to learn a lot about corporate law and particularly insolvency law, where people go bankrupt and businesses basically have too much debt and they have to basically sell off all their assets. And that's where we kind of step in and help them through that. I hold 4 different jobs at the university. So mostly I work as a research assistant, where I do a lot of like mostly like AI-ish research in terms of we're trying to see if social media has particular incentives to promote particular narratives about climate change. So a lot of like sentiment analysis, and then we'd use a bit of stats to figure out if, I don't know, if Facebook likes to promote racism or something like that. So pretty cool research over there. I also did tutor 3710. So if you did take 3710 last semester, you might have had me as your tutor. For those of you for the first years in the room, that's a deep learning course. Would recommend taking it. It's loads of fun. I also interned at TEAS as a data science intern. That was, I think, my first internship in first year. That's where I learned most of my stuff, to be honest. So a lot of unsupervised learning algorithms. I learned all my data cleaning, all my data science fundamentals at that firm. It was loads of fun, and I basically got to build like a little state machine that can predict what state the mining trucks could be in. For those of you that haven't heard of UQ Racing, there's like a Formula student team here at UQ where you can work on Formula racing cars. I was the lead software engineer last year until like halfway through, and I mostly just focused on the autonomous car. In terms of like competitions and whatnot, you might have not heard of our hackathon yet if you're a first year, but basically we run this hackathon every year. We'll be running more hackathons this year. I got the People's Choice Award in that one. It was a bit of a meme. I made a little like gambling bot for my friend to keep him gambling. So somehow won a prize out of that, but that was loads of fun. I'm mostly familiar with trading competitions, so I did IMC Prosperity. I've seen some of you are pretty interested in doing that competition, where I placed 10th in the country and 60th in the world. And I guess the main highlight, which you might have seen in the advert, I guess the start of this year, I've had over 12 internship offers across like banking, consulting, quant. Basically, I have a variety of different industries that even some of them I didn't envision working in, like particularly the law one, but kind of just like bounce around, go here and there. And outside of all this, this is like very heavy like industry stuff, but I do have a life. I am in a metal band, as like seen in the photo. That's a UQCS band. We basically play a lot of things from like metal, electro metal, to even like Sabrina Carpenter. So I mostly play guitar in that band. I love perfume collecting, although I'm not as crazy as Jeremy Fragrance. I actually just like things that smell nice, so I like collecting perfume. Tyrese has been to my room once and he opened my cupboard. He's like, holy crap, you have a lot of perfume. He just wanted deodorant, but I wanted to show him my perfume collection anyway. I have a pet parrot, so I'm a big fan of birds. I love parrots. I'm more of a parrot person. I'm not a cat or a dog person. So I have a pet parrot at home that I like spending time with, and ultimately I just like having dinner with my mates. So like you might catch me around campus having food with my friends. Before we go into the talk, just a quick preface. This stuff could change over time. So a lot of things in my talk could change. The industry is ever evolving. Of course, like things like AI really influence how the industry is today. So I do want to preface that things in this talk could change. I will try and also remain as objective as I can through each of the slides. So I'll try and refrain from giving my own personal opinions, and everything going forward is just an astute observation from things I've heard from colleagues, things that I've seen, maybe stuff posted on LinkedIn. So don't take everything here at face value. Some of the stuff here might work for some people, might not work for others. We try to make it as general as we can. But without any further ado, let's kick it off. So let's start with defining some things. This is my favorite part. We got to define things. What is an internship? What is a grad role? For those of you that don't know, an internship is a paid or an unpaid placement, although they don't really call them unpaid due to legal reasons. Unpaid internships cannot legally exist. So they're like volunteer opportunities, and then that's how they kind of get around the law. So kind of be careful with the unpaid stuff, to be honest. Usually in your penultimate year, I will explain what penultimate is at a different slide. Don't worry if you don't understand any of the terms. Another thing with the preface I forgot to mention, any questions, unless it's like a burning question, you're welcome to raise your hand up, but I do have a Q&A session towards the end. So I encourage you, if you have like a notebook or a laptop, write down your questions. You can fire them at me either at the Q&A session or when the pizza comes around 6:30. But anyways, back to the definitions. The whole point of an internship is they get to try you for like 2 months to 3 months and basically see if you're fit for the company. If you're fit for the company, they'll give you a graduate offer in which you don't have to worry about applying for jobs. You've done your internship, you just have to graduate, and then you got your grad offer, you're ready to jump into the industry. And what does an internship really entail? It typically involves you getting a project. So on your first day, after you do your like onboarding with your boss and all the like HR slides and whatever they want to tell you, you'll be given a project, and then basically you'll be allocated someone called a grad buddy. This grad buddy will basically step you through and tell you, oh, if you need any help, let me know. Yeah, you basically get given like an open-ended project. Depending on the firm, obviously some firms I heard just give you workday modules and that's your internship. Some firms, like I can talk about like my project at TIS, it was meant for a full-timer. It wasn't meant to be given to an intern. It's just they went to their backlog and went, oh, there's something we can give you. Go implement a Gaussian state machine. I'm like, what is a Gaussian state machine? So you do learn a lot by being given these projects. They're very self-sustained, like you are your own master. There will be checkpoints. So during internships, there'll be usually halfway through, your boss will check in with you and see, how are you going? What are you stuck with? What do you need help with? And what they can do to help you get to where you need. With internships in particular, they do want you to succeed. Like they're not gonna hire you and like try and basically not get you a grad offer. The whole point of like the manager check-ins and like the performance reviews is they want you to get that grad offer. So they're gonna give you as much constructive feedback as they can. And the placement range, it could range from like 4 weeks to some of them go for like a whole year or maybe 2 years. I've never seen a 2 year one personally. Usually 1 year is the highest I've seen. But yeah, they could be as short as like 4 weeks to up to a year. Now a grad role, a grad role is usually the role you will get once you graduate. You go through something called a graduate program, which is you join the firm and you'll be rotated through different teams. And then usually they're around like a year or two or even 3. And by the end of the grad program, you'll do something called rolling off, which is you go into the team that either has vacancy for you or the one that you express interest to go into. So the whole point of the grad program is you get a taste of the firm. It's like you're kind of treated like an intern, but like more maturely. And yeah, you basically roll off after like 1 or 2 years. You get the role, and then you stay with that team for like a while. Otherwise, you can change teams. Most firms are flexible, but that's what a grad role is. And to be eligible for a grad role, I mean, it's in the name. You have to be in your final year. So in your final year, you get to apply to them. Now, what does the tech landscape look like? I'll try and breeze through this because it's quite text heavy. Don't worry about taking photos. We will release this talk and the slides afterwards. I'll start with the one I'm most familiar with, HFT firms. So this is the one you probably hear about when it comes to like salaries and, you know, like all the crack people, I guess, going into nowadays. Basically, what an HFT firm is, you use math and statistics to trade stocks. So you're not day trading. You implement systematic strategies and use a quantitative approach to either trade ETFs, options, futures, whatever the firm wants to trade. I mean, I particularly work at Optiva, and we're known for options. So, but their main goal is to also market make. So they provide liquidity to the market. Now, in terms of salaries, you've probably seen them around. They can range from $140,000 to $450,000. I think I did an interview with Jane Street, and I was told it's roughly around like 500,000 Australian is what they're offering their interns, and grads is roughly the same. The reason they pay that much is they have a bonus structure. So you have like a small base salary, which is around like 200-ish, maybe 180-ish. It's not really small, but like compared to the bonus, it's a little bit smaller. And then depending on your performance, you can genuinely like double or 3x your base salary, depending on how you go. In terms of the different roles, now a lot of people like to just throw the word quant. A quant encompasses a lot of different roles that aren't the same thing. So a quantitative trader, the best way I can describe them is like they hyperparameter optimize, and they're kind of just playing poker with other firms, or like retail traders as we call them. So like the models, some firms are very systematic, so the models are already built, and the trader just kind of like shifts the theoretical value or the basically bid-ask spread. They kind of shift it around, kind of adjust to what information they're receiving from the market. They'll try and get signals from the market. A trader could be doing pure like trading on the screen, but some of them do like they could be more research oriented, so they do code a lot of their algorithms. It depends like on the desk that you're on. It's very high variance, I'd say. A quant researcher, which is what I'll be this summer, it's basically the best way I can describe it is like traders who like to code a lot more. The line between research and trading is very blurry. They're almost considered the same thing. Researchers, depending on the team you go into, whether it's like D1, which is Delta 1, that's your machine learning team, or options, or ESS, they mostly focus on building systematic strategies. So they use a lot of ML, so they try and generate signals through data sets. So they have the entire data set. They try their best to find some predictive signal, and then they code a systematic strategy to the signals they've found. A lot of it is also backtest alignment. So they have a simulated backtester that they can test their strategies on before moving. The thing with the hardest part about, I guess, like being a researcher is you need to make sure your backtester aligns with market data. Otherwise, you're getting false positives from your backtester or false negatives. But that's pretty much the whole spiel with research software. It's mostly like it depends on the team you go into. It's very low level. So getting good with C++ and Python, where you take the ideas that a trader might have and you create like an Autobot of some sort that trades those things really fast in C++, or you try and optimize execution. And depending on the team, like I've heard like some firms have research tooling teams that specialize in Python. Some of the strategy teams are in Java, but most of what I've seen is usually around C++. And if you love your hardware, there's FPGA as well. Like basically a lot of the high frequency stuff is on FPGAs. So you'd be mostly familiar with Verilog and VHDL. Interview wise, I'm sure like you might have seen around, there's a lot of rounds involved. So it usually comprises of an online assessment. There'll be a technical interview and a final round. If you do want to get in, like unfortunately with a lot of the firms, the baseline is a 6.0 GPA. If you're under a 6, you're usually scrapped away. Although I know Jane Street doesn't look at GPA in particular, but my experience with other firms, if you're not above a 6, you're not considered competitive. But what to expect, depending on the role you go into, the interviews are very different. So if you're going like trading / slightly like research oriented, get good at your baseline probability and maths. If you're going to go more the software route, get good at DSA and particularly system design. A lot of the firms are shifting to create, like, for example, one of the Jane Street questions was create like a boss battle system or something, or like a character, like a mini video game using like Python or Java or whatever language you choose to do. So there's a lot of like not straight leak code, but like here's the idea, break it down and go implement it. So a lot of firms are moving towards that sort of direction of assessment. And there's also your like algorithm like trivia or like more like language trivia. So like, do you understand, how this particular thing works in Python? Do you understand constructors in C++? Some firms might lean towards more the trivia side of things. There's big tech. So big tech, there's a lot of firms obviously up there. Some of them are not considered big techs, depending on who you ask. But for interns, you're looking around $70,000 to $95,000. Obviously, it's not a fixed number. It could go higher or lower depending on the firm. Grads, it could range from 110 to 200,000. Some of them are Brisbane based, so you can avoid the cost of living in Sydney if you stay up here in Brisbane, but I heard Brisbane house pricing is increasing anyway. Recruitment timing, so they're opening earlier and earlier, I found, with their internships. So I don't know, just look at Prospool and apply as soon as you can, but I've seen openings open as early as December. Some of them open in February, March. Just keep looking at it, but usually that's the time frame you'll be looking at. Grad roles obviously open the earliest. And the roles you can look into is like you can be a software engineer, you could be a data scientist. It's very broad, like they do a lot of things. So whether you're like ML based or backend based or I don't know, like you're really good at Java or something, there is usually a role for most things. These are the roles you can look into. So you can be either a software engineer, which is like the most common role. Product management is getting quite big recently. So, you like drive product management. You're basically the communicator between like the stakeholders and the software engineers. Data science, just, your usual get good at Python, your data and ML. And there's also cloud engineering, which is quite cool. Similar interview process. It is more on the DSA side. So, although it is still very system designy, so of course know your data structures and algorithms. You have an OA, you have your technical rounds, usually back to back. There'll be like a super day round. Some firms don't do super days. I know that Atlassian, it's roughly 2 technicals and a behavioral and you're in. And it's just, generic leak code like easy and mediums. But behavioral rounds obviously focus on communication and leadership, which I'll get into very soon. Now, ML and AS, which AS is a very fitting acronym for this, very undocumented. It's very new, very hard for me to comment on this. Obviously, they're not in Australia. So if you do want to go to these firms, it's like you'll be flying to America or that sort of thing. I can possibly speak to OpenAI as I'm interviewing with them right now. The salaries are quite high. So you're sitting around like 250, like US 250K. Which roughly equates to like 375 Australian or 350 Australian. That's for grads, so it's pretty high paying. With recruitment, so at least for OpenAI, you do your OA, you do a technical, then you have your super day, which is, it could be between 4 to 6 rounds. It could be technical, like 2 technicals back to back, behavioral, and then maybe another final technical. It is very, like I found very leak codey. But in the super day, you will be exposed to, at least from the questions that I've seen, like system design stuff. So again, the boss battle thing, I think was either JS or OpenAI. I can't remember where it was leaked on InterviewDB, but these are some of the questions you could be exposed to. In terms of different roles, so they call it a software engineering internship, but you're basically integrating like ML pipelines into like their backend, or like it's usually quite traditional software engineering. With anything like ML like applied scientist or with research in the name. It typically requires a PhD, so they're quite selective in that metric. And yeah, as I said, with the interview rounds, yeah, you're looking at 3 to 6 rounds roughly. I'm not too sure about Anthropic or Google DeepMind because they only take experienced hires. So you need to be around like 3 to 5 years experience, at least from what I've been told, if you're looking for like a full-time role. But I've heard of people who got like scholarships with Google DeepMind and then they basically intern with them part-time. Not in Australia, I've heard it from someone in the US. But yeah, that's, I guess, the pipeline. It will get more fleshed out as they get bigger, or I don't know how much funding they're going to get in the future, but they are growing. And yes, with the internship, it will be in the United States equivalent of the summer, so it's May to August. They don't do our summer, which is November to like February. So uh, luckily, that's roughly around like end of Sem 1. Like you might have to leave straight after exams and go to the US if you do get a role. But yeah, that's MLNS for you. Oh God, I love that acronym. Now, consulting and banking. I did have a few offers from these guys. So consulting, basically what it entails is a client, we call them clients, they'll come up to you, they have a problem, and you as the consultant try and develop a solution for them. The pay isn't great. It's roughly around 55 to 65,000 annualized. If I were to equate that to an hourly rate, like your maximum, depending on the firm you go to, you're looking at around maybe like max $30 an hour, but maybe close to $25 an hour. I think EY is a bit more generous with their compensation, but at least from what I've seen with Deloitte, not so generous. It opens early in the year. I think they're open right now, so you can probably apply to them. There's almost zero technicals with any of these consulting firms. It's usually an online assessment, which I kid you not is like, look at the spreadsheet, where's the highest profit. It's very basic, like numeracy. Like if you've done like general maths, like you'd be more than fine. Even essential maths, honestly, like it's just basic math. And then it's mostly behavioral as well. So you have to vibe really well with the interviewers. So you have an online behavioral, which is a one-way video interview. Once you've done that, you'll be invited. They call it what's the word for it? Assessment center. So basically, you'll either be invited in person to the firm or you'll do it online. And basically, it'll be a group. It's almost like a group interview. The partner will give you a case. It's like, develop a presentation to how you might approach this problem. And then they will assess how you work well in the team. If you guys want a really good tip on how to like always like pass the behavioral, volunteer as a scribe, because yeah, you don't really have to contribute that much. You just write everything on the PowerPoint, and you can the benefit of doing this is you see everyone's ideas in writing, and then you can ultimately go, oh, that's a better idea. Maybe we should do this. I've always done this. Like I've volunteered as a scribe, and it's always worked. But yeah, usually you do the assessment center, you get given an offer, and usually it's between 4 to 8 weeks is what their internships are. Banks, it could vary a little bit more. So with banks, it's you'll be doing a lot of like fintech. So at least from what I've seen, it's a lot of like data science with how we can prevent fraud, how can we, I guess, maximize customer retention, what features could we add to our banking apps to, I guess, retain more of our customers or get more of a market share. They're a little bit more generous, so 60 to 80,000, and grads at 75 to 90,000. I will say the only Brisbane-facing firm for software engineering is ANZ. I think either NAB or Westpac do have a Gold Coast like internship that you can do. But I know from at least like Combank and the other like 3 banks, they will not pay for relocation. So if you do get an offer, you'll have to source accommodation in Sydney, which is a bit tiring. I'll say for the least, it's quite expensive. But yes, it's very similar process to the consulting firms. Usually no away. You'll get like a higher view, so like a one-way video interview if you pass your resume screening, and then it's straight to the assessment center, exactly the same as consulting. I know like Macquarie does OAs for Combank if you want to go for the summer analyst role, which is more like working with the traders at Combank. Yeah, I know the banks do trade, guys. They require you to do like a codility test or like a coding assessment, and then you go straight to the on-site interview. So the crux of it is very easy. There's a famous I won't name the firm, but I like jokingly with one of them just like live streamed myself like in one of the interviews, and I was taking like gifted subs to like basically try and sabotage the interview, and I still ended up like getting the offer anyway. So it's really not difficult. You just have to vibe. Like you just have to be very interpersonal, converse in semi-decent English, and you'll be more than fine. Government and research. I will preface before I go into it. Very high variance. Because the government has a lot of branches and the branches have a lot of teams, what you can do varies a lot. So the intern, they're pretty okay with their intern salary, so you get paid roughly what's on the slide. Recruitment is also very weird. Some of them do rolling intakes throughout the year. Some of them do cadetships, which means like you work like part-time or full-time while studying, or they might try and fund your studying. But usually I found government particularly opens around like the June period for like a lot of the roles, but some stuff is open right now, particularly the grad roles. In terms of, I guess, responsibilities, it will depend on the team. I will, yeah, as I said with the preface thing, I have friends in some government branches that literally play Overwatch for 4 hours and then do work for the other 3 hours. And then I have some friends in other government branches that did super cool projects. So it really depends on the team you go into. I can't really comment too much to it because it's such high variance. But basically, the process is if you're interested in research, typically CSIRO is where you want to go. You apply for an internship, you can do like a little research project with them, and then you get basically a taste of what research is like. In terms of grad, it depends on the role. Some research activities require you to have a PhD, some don't really care. So I reckon just look at the job description which is, with each of these firms and I guess see what's going on, see if you fit the criteria. Obviously, I know a lot of people that interned at all these branches, so you can just go on LinkedIn, talk to them, they'll be able to help you with that. Mining, energy, and defense also quite high variance. So they're quite generous with the compensation. So at least at TIS, I got roughly like 40-ish an hour. So that was pretty good. I got to have fried chicken every day and not worry about my like bank account. Grads are also a bit nicer with compensation, although with Palantir being on that list, I know they pay a lot. So it's very high variance. It's usually around that ballpark, but it could be a lot higher. Recruitment is usually early, so some of the mining firms have already started recruiting. But if you don't get anything now, don't worry. It's like a second intake around June, July. But I'll get to like how to like keep up with all this in a later slide. But there's a lot of things open. With what you can do, really depends. So I did data science, so I did a lot of PyTorch and SQL and PySpark, and I used Databricks a lot. So that's at least what I was exposed to at TIS, but I know at other firms you could do more, you could be more on the cloud side, you could be more on the like embedded side. So you can literally do anything at any of these firms. It's very, very broad, but typically I find with defense, you focus more on the low level side. There's also an AI team as well that, focuses on how they can integrate machine learning into some of their systems. But yes, that's, I guess, the process with defense. With, I guess, the interviews as well. Typically not too many. So most of them just do OAs and it's just a chat with the manager. Some of them might involve a technical, but it depends on the firm. Most of them, it's like OA. Some of them might require you to do FIFO. So if you don't know what FIFO is, it's fly in, fly out. You might have to go to like Gladstone or like go in the mines and work there. It's pretty cool, to be honest. It's not too, I've had friends do FIFO. I would recommend doing it. But yes, that's one thing to keep in mind with some of these firms. Startups. This is probably the highest variance slide I have here. There's two camps you can be in. You can either found a startup or you can work at a startup. If you're founding a startup, it's really hard because you need to justify, I guess, why your product is kind of good, and you have to try and get into some of these accelerators or find a way to raise funding. Or you can just be an AI B2B SaaS and just put slop on LinkedIn and call it a day. It's very high variance. I can't comment too much into it. There are some startup firms you can work at. So I know Lyra hires things called forward deployed engineers, which basically you interact with the firm that needs the work. So it's very client facing. You could be doing a lot of data. You could be doing a lot of product ops. I would recommend working at a startup. It's very some places are high pressure. It's very fast moving. You can learn a lot. They don't have fixed requirements. You don't have to be penultimate usually to work at startups. It's just talk to the founder. Maybe they can get you in. But I will say this, do your due diligence on the founder. So before you sign with a startup, you want to check if, how long has the startup been operating for? What do they have to offer? If it's like a student running it and it's like barely like lasted a year, and you look at the code base, it's just a bunch of slop. And the guy, like they post a lot of like stupid marketing advertisements on LinkedIn, and then it's just like when you open it, you cringe. Maybe you don't want to work for them, but if the founder believes in their vision, so like if they really care about what they're doing and they're not just doing it to get an exit, then maybe you have a higher chance of getting valuable experience out of them. Now this is probably the one good slide out of here. Where do you find job opportunities? So there's this website called Prospool that keeps track of all like the intern and grad opportunities. I would recommend checking this weekly. It's really, really good. You can look at different things. LinkedIn jobs as well. So what you want to do is open LinkedIn, go to the jobs category and type in intern, and then everything, within the location specified, you'll be able to see. Within the UQCS Discord, you can look at the jobs bulletin tab. So a lot of people within UQCS that are alumni might post, job openings there, and they'll be happy to refer UQCS members. Go to career fairs, so you can come to networking nights, just chat to the people. I've gotten 2 offers from literally going to career events. Like one of them, I just had a snag with the tech lead, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll give you an interview tomorrow. We'll chat," and then I ended up getting an offer from it. The other one was at my uni job. I was literally talking to a lady about her son. It's like, "Oh, my son's going to the police academy and all that." And then she, after 15 minutes of hearing what her son is doing, she's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "I do software engineering." And she's like, "Oh, I know a place hiring. Do you want a job?" It's genuinely that easy. You just, with society career events, probably build personal skills as well, because they'll have more of an incentive to kind of give you a job if they really like you. A lot of people don't know this. Student Hub. So a lot of the uni roles I got is by browsing Student Hub. So if you just type in UQ Student Hub, they tend to have a lot more of the part-time and casual positions. So a lot of the smaller firms might advertise exclusively with UQ, and you'll be able to find it on Student Hub. So I would recommend do check Student Hub. Obviously, talk to your friends. If your friend has a position you like, works at a firm that you want to work at, ask them, what's the process like? What can I do? And I've done this for a lot of my friends. I'll give them mock interviews. So definitely use your network, talk to your friends. It could help you a lot. Now, this is a little jokey segment that I added. Basically, tips from Brezza. It's basically, that's where I interject my personal opinions into stuff. And probably if you're looking for tips that I would give you in a Q&A session, you'll find them in these slides. First thing is, particularly for the first years who are kind of stuck and don't know what they're doing, the main common theme, the main hireable trait every recruiter loves is if you're curious and you learn quickly. Basically, don't be picky in your first year. You want to try and be a sponge. Be open to learn everything. Be open to do hackathons. Be open to take on new projects. If you are very closed-minded and you're not happy to learn something, to do something, when you go do an internship, there's a very low probability if you're getting a return offer, because teams don't like that. They don't like it if you're not open to feedback, if you're not open to any of that sort of stuff. Probably one of the best things I picked up is self-learning. So if you can teach yourself a concept, you win in 2 ways. If you go to an internship, you can learn very quickly. If you have a bad lecturer, you don't have to watch the lectures, you can teach yourself the content. And you also, the benefit of this, you don't have to rely on courses to get the content that you want. You can just open a book and just read the damn book and just know, get the information that you want without forking $1,000 to $2,000 a course. So I would recommend doing this. It opens your horizons as well. So when you go to a hackathon and go, "I did not take Com 4702, I can't do machine learning." It's no, you can. Just look up the PyTorch docs. You'll be more than fine. You can maybe use chat to help you. And as I said, the more you're open to do new things, the easier it is to solve newer problems. You don't have to memorize LeetCode questions, which leads to my next point. Get good at problem solving. Don't overfit. Don't try and focus too much on your grades. Focus on getting good at identifying a problem, breaking down a problem, and how to solve that problem. So a lot of firms will assess you on this. They're not going to throw you the hardest LeetCode you've ever seen and expect you to 100% it. They will assess, okay, how did the candidate break down the problem? how did the candidate communicate any struggles they have with the problem to the interviewer? And building on from this, you need to show your employers that you're a good problem solver. Don't write in your resume that you're a good problem solver. You want to practice show, don't tell. Because 9 times out of 10, if you have to tell someone you're a good problem solver or you're good at something, you're likely not good at that thing. You need to show them you're good at that thing. And the reason why you need to develop problem solving is because of how the software landscape is changing. Your role as a software engineer is to solve problems. You need to create value for the firm. That's why they're paying you a salary in the first place. The bare minimum, so just graduating from the computer science degree, is slowly not becoming enough because they need more data points to know that you're a good candidate outside the fact that you've done a bachelor's. So, okay, what can you show that you're a good problem solver? Because a bachelor's is not enough anymore. You need maybe higher grades, maybe projects on the resume, maybe committee involvement. You need other things to show people that you can solve problems, you can work in teams, and therefore you should be hired. And then that leads to my next one. Don't leak code slave, particularly if you're in first year. Try and ease off like the leak code. Try and focus more on understanding why you're doing what you are doing, rather than I haven't seen this leak code question before. Oh no, this interview is cooked. It's a lot easier once you do Comp 3506, which we'll get to a different slide. Now, what are the different assessments that you can, I guess, experience as a computer science student? So these are the 4 ones. So you can either do, almost all of you will do an online assessment, and then your interviews will be split among those 3, either an algorithmic round, a system design round, or a behavioral round, which we'll quickly deep dive into very soon. So what is an online assessment? This will be the technique most recruiters will try and screen you out. They get thousands of applications. More than half of them are pretty bad. So they send everyone an online assessment and basically test 2 things. First of all, are you okay enough to do the online assessment, or are you going to be really lazy and just not bother doing it, right? So they're going to test, okay, is the person willing to do an online assessment? The second thing is they're just going to test basic competency. Now, depending on the firm you ask, they might test a little bit more than basic competency. But for a lot of the firms, they're just they'll either test, can you read numbers and can you read English? Some firms might test, okay, can you code to a okay enough ability that we should give you a technical interview? So depending on the firm, you'll either get coding interviews, you might get logic, more like IQ testy sort of OAs where you might have to play a series of mini games. They do tests for different things. You can Google online what do different OAs test for, but basically you might have to do a bit of an IQ test. They can't legally call them IQ tests, but they feel like IQ tests. There's some game-based assessments as well that basically test, how long can you hold your attention span. Some of them do tests for that. Some of them test decision-making under pressure. Now, depending on where you go, if you're in tech, if you're after becoming a software engineer, you'll 9 times out of 10 get a leak code OA. So, or maybe a system design OA where it's here's a class, implement this class based on the problem specification. But mostly you'll get a leak code easy or medium. Hards are a little bit uncommon. Not uncommon, sorry. Yeah, they are uncommon. Some firms started asking hards, but you don't have to worry too hard about them. They're not, if you don't pass all the test cases, it's okay. And the common platforms you do it at is either HackerRank, Codility, or you might do a higher view as your one-way video interview, which basically they'll give you a question, you have to turn your camera on, and then basically it's when was the time you worked in a team? And you have to speak into your webcam and go blah, 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 next question. But most for the coding stuff, you'll be on HackerRank and Codility. They are starting to become proctored. So by proctored, it means they're trying to see if you're trying to cheat. So they'll ask you to turn on your webcam. One of them went as far as asking me to disconnect my second monitor from my graphics card. So I had to go under my computer, unplug my graphics card to make sure only a single monitor is available. So some of them are going that far. Some of them I've heard have started implementing abstract syntax tree to compare it to a AI generated coding response. And basically if the abstract syntax tree is too similar to the AI one, they know you used AI and then they'll flag you for AI. Some of them record it to see if you type a solution too fast, then you probably AI'd it. So there's a lot of different proctoring things they're doing. How to get good at this? Practice under time conditions. So if you want, you can whip out either LeetCode, NeetCode, or getcracked.io. Set a timer on your iPhone or whatever phone you're using, and then basically just practice getting used to that pressure, because most of the time, all of you can solve these problems. It's just like the little ticking timer on the side gets you really nervous. So get used to, I guess, time conditions. Revise the basics. Don't worry about like DP or any of these like annoying LeetCode algorithms, although DP isn't that hard, to be honest. Focus more on the basics. Know your arrays, know your maps, know your strings. Know basic graphs, just like, BFS, DFS, call it a day. You're not going to get like a top sort problem in an OA, like very unlikely. Focus on just the basic graph traversals. Just know a bit of basic math will get you a long way. And sit it April might have something to say this. Don't sit this at like 2 a.m. Try and sit it when, you're ready to sit it, you're awake, you've had breakfast, you've eaten food. Don't sit it in like a UQ library either, that you don't want someone tapping you on the shoulder and you get jump scared while doing an OA. Prioritize getting the easy marks. So they do look at clean code. Don't start writing variables as like X, Y, or P, Z. Like, use descriptive variable names, write clean code, makes it nice and easy for you. And as I said, don't worry too much about niche algorithms. Usually like blind 75 is like most of what you need to do well in OAs and interviews. And if some interviews, particularly for Optiva, our second OA is like a CS trivia question. You need to know cache locality, you need to know a bit of operating systems knowledge. You can probably jump on getcracked.io and just kind of like iPad kid the questions. So go on there, just know your language, know a bit of OS if you're like going more for the quant side of things. But that's usually all you need for online assessments. The algorithmic round gets a little bit more complicated. So once you do pass your OA, and that's a very like broad threshold depending on what you define passing as, you'll be invited to a live interview. So there'll be an engineer, it'll be 60 minutes, it'll be face-to-face. I'll tell you, it's easier than the OA. Live interviews are easier than the OA, given you can communicate. If you can't communicate, you'll probably make the interviewer flustered, and you'll also get flustered because you can't get your ideas across. Basically, it's usually 60 to 120 minutes, and depending on the firm, they'll either start with like a LeetCode easy, and then they'll ask a follow-up question that turns that into a medium, and then that's usually the end of the interview. They might ask like a fun trivia follow-up question after that, but it depends on the firm. If you do get the algorithmic round, you want to focus on clarify the problem. Don't jump into if you jump into coding straight away, GG's, interview is over. You want to think about the problem, talk to the interviewer and go, hey, what are the constraints? What's the maximum values we can get? What about this edge case? What about this edge case? I am currently thinking the best thing you can do, you can bait the interviewer into giving you the solution by saying, I am thinking of doing this by, I'm going to use maybe BFS traversal for this question. The reason I'm doing it is because X, Y, and Z. Are you happy with this? And usually if they're not, they will give you a hint that tells you what the solution of the problem should look like. You get that hint, run away with it, code the solution, put some comments in there. Hooray, you passed stage 1 of the interview. Now, they'll ask you a follow-up. Usually it'll be a complexity optimization thing. So say the optimal complexity is O of log n, and you coded an O of n solution. You can jump to the O of log n solution if you take the first tip I gave you, which is clarify the problem, and then they will usually push you to the optimal solution. But if you did code O of n, your follow-up will be, hey, just letting you know, maybe the array elements are ordered and you didn't consider that. And then you can go, oh, this is a binary search problem, holy. And there you go. And then sometimes they'll ask you a second question. It'll be an unrelated question, like they'll start with an easy, and then it will jump to like, maybe a lot of the graph ones sit around the medium difficulty. So usually your second question might be a graph question. So in terms of common tips, know your data structures and algorithms. Don't memorize them. Know them. You need to understand them, see where they fail, where they exceed. If you know them, you'll be able to answer most of these questions and not basically come unstuck. The good thing about the interviews is you can make errors in the coding interview as long as they aren't like deadly errors, like such as you don't know what a while loop is or a for loop, which if you can do the OA, you probably don't have to worry about that. But it's conversational. Keyword on conversational. Don't focus on the code. the best tip I can give for this, verbalize everything. Anything in your mind, just like yap. The more you yap, the more points you'll get. If you don't yap, you'll be failing. Like I can guarantee you that. You need to talk as much as you can. You need to explain what you, like get good at explaining what you want to do. If you do want to practice that, find a friend. Just find a friend, grab a question of leak code and tell them, hey, pretend you're an interviewer and then just practice that skill with them. And I can guarantee you, you'll be usually very good for most of the algorithmic rounds. Now, system design, it's a bit of a, this used to be more contrived to your mid and senior engineers, but now you're seeing it more in the undergraduate level. Basically, they're more open-ended. So they'll go, like a common system design, you can get 2 system design types of interviews. One of them is purely diagramming, which I think I did with Dolby, where they asked, hey, like given you're in a noisy environment, design an algorithm that basically like denoises data and people can enjoy their content on like noisy environments. So I had to like to draw a diagram and the inputs go here and the outputs go there. So there's this thing called UML diagrams. I think they're like pretty OP. If you whip out an UML diagram in a system design interview, basically, yeah, you're going to the next round. So be familiar with UML diagrams, but the more common system designs you'll see are called object-oriented programming like design. Basically, they'll give you that open-ended problem to say that design this, let's say design a Pokemon Switch like sort of game where like a turn-based game, right? Where you have 2 Pokemons and they're trying to attack each other and you need to track health, you need to track all that sort of stuff. They will give you those sort of questions. The best way I can tell you to, I guess, prepare for these interviews, get good at object-oriented programming. Understand, like if you've done CSSC 2002, understand CSSC 2002. Don't GPT your assessments and like forget what encapsulation means. They will ask you about it, possibly. But what they're looking for is, given this very vague description of what they want, break down the problem to its smallest sub-values and go, hey, can we store the Pokemon in classes? And are you happy if I have these member variables in my class, such as health, attack speed, X, Y, and Z? And a good way to know if you're doing well is the interviewer will go, they can't tell you that's the correct solution. They'll go, that sounds about right. If they say things along those lines, you're in the right track. Keep going, keep asking, clarify the problem. Similar to the previous advice I gave, please don't use vague variable names. Be as descriptive as you can. Have comments. Make sure the classes are neat. You can have a bit of fun with it. Like you can name your classes funny names if you're vibing with your interviewer, but be very descriptive with your classes. The way you can practice this, there's a GitHub repo called SysDesign Primer. You can have a look at it. It basically explains all the system design concepts you need to be familiar with. There are problems on NeetCode and LeetCode, possibly get cracked, that ask you to design a particular concept. So if you're targeting more on the quant side of things, maybe get cracked has some more of the low-level stuff that you need to get good at C++ with. Otherwise, with NeetCode and LeetCode, it has the generic like design Twitter, design X, Y, and Z sort of question. Luckily, they're a lot easier than the algorithmic round because you're going back and forth with the interviewer. You're both working together to make this product. So then that's the next point. Get good at communication. If you're terrible at communication, like this interview is like 10x harder. So again, practice that with a friend. Behavioral round is probably the easiest round you will sit. It's a bit of a vibe check. So it's kind of a vibe check, but there's a bit of structure to it that you guys need to be aware of. So usually it'll be one of the first or the final interviews you'll be sitting. They will ask you questions that involve either teamwork, how you deal with failure, or I guess how you approach learning. So they'll ask you questions of, tell me about a time that you were in a group project and you had conflict with another team member. You need to structure your answers using the STAR format. So that's situation, task, action, result. You can Google it. You can follow some example results where how to write a very good STAR formatted response. You want to also frame your answers as a learning experience. So if you had a dodgy team member in your group project, you would basically want to be careful with saying, they were terrible, I hated them, I think I punched the guy because he wasn't doing any work. You want to say, you're welcome to embellish a little bit. You can say, oh, I went to the person, we discussed our difficulties, we developed a plan, and through this plan, we were able to complete this group project or win like some award or win something. So I would say with this one, if you're getting started, you can write a script. So whip out like whatever you want to write your script into, write it in paragraph format. And then once you write like 3 to 4 stories, you will find you can use those stories for basically any behavioral interview that you'll ever get, even if it's a question you've never seen, because the questions are so similar. You can kind of slightly change your story a little bit to fit the question they asked you. So some of the common ones: focus on teamwork, focus on, I guess, like competitive drive. So like when was a time, you needed motivation to complete something. Failure is a really big one. So you tried to go for something and failed, and how did you, I guess, address that? So you do want, those are like the 3 main ones you want to focus on. And they'll be the most common interviews you'll sit as well. Now, as I was saying, how do you build your behavioral skills? There's a lot of different things you can do. Number 1 is communication. You might have the best stories in the world. You might have, you might have, I don't know, climbed Mount Everest with like your friends and you want to tell your recruiter about it. But if you can't communicate well, then it's gonna suck, right? So again, practice it with your friends. Be willing to learn in your first couple of years. Don't think you're a know-it-all by first or second year. Be open to learning new things. Be open to feedback. Coachability is probably like the second or like the number 1 skill you want to demonstrate in behavioral interviews, because what firms are looking for is people who's willing to learn and someone who can take feedback. If you have those 2 things, you'll probably get hired anyway. You do want to research the company beforehand. Hey guys, could you like be quiet for a second? But basically, yeah, you want to research the company beforehand. There have been many times I've sat at interviews where the people did not know what the company did. And then like I can give you an example with a bank, an interview I did with a bank where we were sitting together and the solution we drafted to the partner, they were saying, oh, we can maybe use like an AI that can try and classify fraud. And I went, they already have that. We don't need to make it. So it's good to know what the company does beforehand. You want to be careful landing in that predicament. Be able to read the room as well. So if you're very high energy and I guess the interview is a bit more serious, you want to, I guess, like contain your energy a little bit where you don't rub them off the wrong way. Be a chameleon is the best thing I can say. Like shift your personality around depending on who you're talking to. If the person, I guess, loves like motorbikes or I don't know, whatever they're into, like try and like lean into their hobbies, try and talk with them about it. And obviously like build a network. The best thing you can do in your first few years of uni, do stuff together, do hackathons together, go to careers fairs, meet people. You'll be surprised how much like having a network like gets you places. Like I personally, like my network has reached the stage where I don't apply for jobs. Jobs kind of find me. Like recruiters hit me up. It's like, do you want to interview? So it's really important to build your network. Obviously, be careful on how you build it. Don't post LinkedIn slop, in my opinion. There's much safer ways of going about it, but it's pretty good to build one. Now, how do you build it? If English is your second language, there are societies that specialize in languages. Like they do these language exchange. So I have a friend in UQJX, for those of you that speak Japanese. Basically, they do these language exchanges where you help a Japanese person learn English, they help you learn Japanese. And I think all those clubs do it. So there's a French society, German society, there's a bunch of different societies. So if you struggle a bit with English, go to a relevant society or someone who speaks your language and then do a bit of an exchange. Like you teach them your language, they teach you English. The best thing I've ever done, a retail job. So I worked at JB for like 4 years. And if you've ever been to JB Hi-Fi, the salesmen just talk and talk and talk and talk. And then you hear the word extended warranty and then they keep talking. So I think that's the best job that I have done that gave me the behavioral skills that I have. It taught me a lot. You talk with people from all walks of life. So you learn how to talk to different people. And I guess that's where I developed my talking skills from. It's from that retail job. I had a really good manager who taught me everything that I know. The other thing as well, and this is very important for the first years here, ask for help. You're genuinely not alone. You're seeing all of this and you're like, oh crap, I have to do all of this. This is really difficult. Talk with people, talk with your peers. I remember I wasn't sure if I was comfortable interviewing. I talked with a friend at Atlassian and they did a mock interview for me. So if you feel that any of this is overbearing, ask for help, get a mock interview in. And of course, go to networking events, you know, learn to talk to recruiters, learn how to like structure and like network with people. And then, yeah, here comes my personal opinion. Build your damn behavioral skills. That is probably the number one skill you should build as a software engineer. You can get away with being able to riz your way through interviews because of the way you talk versus like you kind of suck at coding. Like it's very easy to mask your like terrible coding skills by being a really good talker. Because I'll admit 80% of the firms that hire might not even ask you coding questions. So you just have to be a bit of a rizzler and like you'll get the job. So genuinely build your behavioral skills. The ideal resume. Everyone's worried like what do I need to put on the resume? What should it look like? What should I do? I'll start with the general structure. You want to have your name and the socials at the top. Education first. Recruiters, the way they look at resumes is they go through like a checklist. Are you eligible for the internship? Are you eligible for a grad role? Are you not some random 40-year-old trying to apply for an internship that isn't in an undergraduate degree? You want to make it easy for them to hire you. So you put education first. They can see you're an undergrad. They can see your GPA. Tick, tick, eligible for the program. Then you start to sweeten the deal. You put your experiences in there. And that's where you show them why should they hire you. Then you put your projects and awards underneath that. Then your technical skills, which is basically like, you know, what tech stacks are you familiar with? We'll show you example resumes very, very soon, so don't worry about this too much. Keep it between 1 to 2 pages if you're an undergrad. Under no circumstance, an undergrad should have 2 pages unless you've had like maybe 5 or 6 internships and you're like the president of like 2 clubs and you've had like 3 or 4 projects. It's a marketing document. You don't want to word vomit to the recruiter. Keep the nice stuff at the top. Make it easy for them to go tick, tick. Oh, wow, they're kind of cracked. All right, on to the next stage. Some recruiters spend a long time reading resumes. Some max maybe 30 seconds to a minute. So you want to minimize the variance, make it easy for them to just look at your resume, go, oh, I like this person. They seem like a chiller. Here they go. Now, the format you want to follow with all your resume dot points, and you can genuinely just chuck this into chat and tell it, please follow this format. Did X using Y to achieve Z? So basically like an example sentence would be, I implemented a statistical modeling state machine using, you know, EKF filters, Databricks, and PyTorch to save my firm 20% in costs. You want to do that for every dot point. My recruiter basically told me her favorite things to see on resumes is quantifiable results. It makes it easy to see what have you done, how involved were you in your project, and how impactful your project was. So please quantify everything with a caveat. Don't quantify things that can't be quantified. So say, for example, you volunteered at like a homeless shelter. You can't say, I saved 1,500 homeless people. It's like, no, what? You wanna focus more on like the qualitative side of that. So you wanna say, okay, you wanna focus on the emotional impact, but yeah, don't quantify everything. With the general tips, if you're lacking, or like if you look at your resume and you're like, oh crap, I have nothing, especially for the first years in the room, do the hackathons, build some projects with mates, anything that you're interested in. Exec positions are really powerful. I met someone that came to a ML internship, knows 0 Python, 0 ML, and basically just maxed out societies. And like that was their strong suit. So exec positions, they really do care about it. I can even speak to my like girlfriend's interview experience where she went for a law internship, completely ignored her law experience, and they went, oh, like tell me about this time you were at UQ Racing, like you were the business lead. Tell me more about it. So executive positions are really powerful. I'd recommend joining them. Student teams, so UQ Racing in space. Tutoring, I've heard some firms favor tutors to be hired, so if you can get a tutoring position, get it. Summer and winter research. They're basically internships offered by UQ. They're currently open, would recommend applying to them. We have people in the room that have done summer and winter research positions as well. So Javi and Yusuf over there. If you do want to talk to them after we're done with the talk, welcome to ask them about how their project went. Spoiler alert, it went pretty good. If your GPA is above a 6, put it on the resume, otherwise hide it. Don't list your courses on the resume. Your transcript's job is to show them what courses you've done. I'll personally omit courses out of the resume. Omit the little summary at the top as well if you want to save some space. There's no point having a summary up there. Personal opinion, maybe don't put your hobbies on the resume. Save them for the behavioral interview. So once you vibe, depending, you don't know who you're going to get as an interviewer. Depending on who your interviewer is, you can talk about certain hobbies. So it's not, they're not really going to scroll all the way down and see your hobbies. So maybe if you want to save some space, I'd recommend just not having it on there. I would personally avoid talking in first person. Third person tends to hit a lot harder with the recruiters. As I said before, even if, like, say you did an internship 2 years ago and the internship you're doing now isn't super relevant, put the one that's more relevant to the role at the top. As I said again, you want to make it easy as they're looking down to go, oh, yep, cool. All right, I don't need to look at the rest. Here they are. With first years, basically, it's a little, with people have different opinions on what to put from high school. It's a bit of a seesaw. You're fresh out of high school, you have nothing on your resume. You want to max out, I guess, what you did in high school. So captaincy positions, volunteering positions, all the stuff you did there, maybe some awards that you've done. And as you're, exploring your uni experience, you want to slowly shift that seesaw this way, where you basically permanently delete everything you did in high school. For some firms, I heard they do look at high school, but don't worry about it. These are some popular templates you can use. Templating is really important. I met a super smart friend that had like a very terrible like Microsoft Word like Times New Roman font. It was really bad. And he got rejected because his resume template wasn't good, although his experiences were really awesome. So here are some 3 popular templates you can do. Jake's resume is quite famous. As you've seen online, I think it's EAIT's like official resume that they market. April here has basically taken Jake's resume and put it into Types. So I reckon Types is a much nicer platform to deal with. So I would personally recommend to use April's one. No bias at all, even though she's my secretary. And there's also Wall Street Oasis. So it's very common for investment bankers to use the WSO template, but it's basically almost a copy from the Jake's resume one. So as I said, education, experience, projects, make it look nice, have the dates on there. Cool, yo. Here's a little case. We'll go through a little case study. This is an example first year student, let's say like starts this year. This is completely fictitious. Although some of this is very uncanny to Tyrese's experience, it's a completely fictitious person. So typically what you'll have as a first year is you'll have your high school, you'll probably put your ATAR on there. You'll probably put some of your captaincy positions, as you can see over here. And then you'll primarily you'll be mostly filling your project section. So you'll mostly fill your you'll say, I did this hackathon over here. I worked on this project on the side. I got these awards at the uni. So as you can see, John Doe over here has a few projects they can talk about. You want to try and inflate that as much as you can, because that's, some places do take first years. You don't have to be a penultimate student. They will look at the projects and they will ask you about them. So try and get as many projects, as many hackathons and whatnot in there. But as you can see, there's not much going on. But the way John Doe constructed this is, they use the template, they use the techniques we discussed before, and it almost looks like a third year's resume, although there isn't much going on from a technical perspective. So you want to follow kind of like, if you're in first year, you want to follow this kind of example. But you'll see, based on the advice we'll be giving John Doe in the next few slides, the resume will be a lot better by the time they hit penultimate year. Tips from brother. Now, the main thing I noticed with first years, and it's a lot of the questions I get asked at Careers Fair, is they're so worried about the end destination. It's like, there's all these cracked people going around. They have so many intern offers. I don't know what to do. Is CS right for me? I want to drop out. Slow down, cowboy. I call this the snowball effect. What you want to do is you want to look at what's happening to you now. Don't compare yourself to someone in their 3rd or 4th year, because obviously they're in their 3rd and 4th year. They had 3 more years to build something. You only just started. What you want to do is there's a little snowball. You want to start with like a hackathon. You want to start with like a project, and then you're slowly rolling that snowball down the hill. You will notice it's a lot easier the moment you get your toe in the door. Like in terms of internship offers, grad offers, part-time jobs, it exponentially gets easier. Like I'll give you my experience in my first year, after first sem, rejected from everywhere. GPA wasn't that good. Locked in really, really hard. Got my GPA up, did some project, did basically all the hackathons, did traded comps. And then by the end of that year, 6 offers. Like the moment you just decide to turn it around and just roll that snowball and just focus on rolling your snowball. Don't look at someone else's snowball. Although you're welcome to compare, you will notice it's a lot easier, and you're not alone in doing that. So you want to focus on where you currently stand, and I guess set the goal. By the end of first year, I want this. What do I need to get this? I need these sort of things. And then you slowly roll your snowball down. And of course, the journey over the destination. You want to focus more on what you did to get there. You will learn so much more in what the time you spend to get what you want versus when you finally get that offer or you get that grad role. And it's a lot more fun to focus on the journey personally. Like when I got 2 offers from Optiver, I felt empty. I didn't feel anything. I went, okay, cool. What's next? But I missed the grind and the adrenaline and the energy I like spent into it to get to where I needed to be. And I noticed like through that journey, like you meet your friends, and then that's where you learn the most. So don't focus on the LinkedIns, don't focus on the achievements, focus on the learning journey you will spend to get to where you need to be. Now, here's a year-by-year roadmap. So I'll quickly show you what it looks like year by year and what to expect in the different stages of the program. Now, you would hear these terms being said, in applications or by like peers. What is a penultimate student? A penultimate student is someone in their second to last year of their degree. That's when most of you can apply to internships. So if an internship says they're penultimate, typically you can't get it unless you're penultimate. There are some ways around it, cheeky ways, which I'll get to a bit later, but you are pre-penultimate before that. So there's a lot of programs that are open to pre-penultimate students. Okay, what can you do as a pre-penultimate student? A lot of especially if you're into the quant sphere, there's a lot of these discovery programs, but they're open to people who are not in their second to last year of study. Basically, it's like they invite you to their office. It's between 3 to 5 days. They'll put you in a hotel. They'll feed you. And then it's basically like a mini interview almost. You're getting assessed like 5 days a week from 8 till 8. And it's like a mini internship. And then if you do succeed, you'll be extended an offer for the following year. So I personally did Future Focus. I also did SIGS 1. SIGS 1 was also quite nice. They're a lot of fun. I'd recommend doing them. You get a taste of the industry before locking in an internship. Your goal as a pre-penultimate student is to be a sponge. Learn as much as you can. Build those interpersonal skills. Don't worry if you don't get an offer in your first year. Focus on getting those skills as fast as you can. Get those hackathons in. Get those projects in. Maybe join the student team. And life will get better. Otherwise, if you're feeling adventurous, definitely like as you're doing that, apply to these programs. Like these programs are really good to have on the resume. I know I personally got reached out by Jane Street after completing the Optiva Future Focus program. So if you do complete some of these programs, you could get headhunted by other firms. So maybe if you're not like too interested in quant, it's still good to do. I'd recommend doing them personally. It's a free, at the end of the day, if you don't want the offer, it's a free holiday to Sydney. So might as well do it. What are some tips I can give you? As we said, discovery programs, make a portfolio site. This is where you want to grow your resume. So try and go for exec positions. Try and, do hackathons, volunteer projects with exec positions. If you're wondering, how do I get in? Usually there's this thing called an AGM, which is an annual general meeting that opens at the end of every year. That's when you can nominate yourself to run for the club. So at UQCS, we usually have it around October. You can nominate for any position that you like, and then if you're voted in, you're basically in. Yes, Tyrese? We also do have subcommittee roles. So we have a CPG subcommittee, media subcommittee, and infra subcommittee. Basically, you get to work under those particular portfolios. So if you're interested in graphic design or videography, you go in media subcommittee. If you love competitive programming and want to help out with writing questions, you can go into CPG. We're recruiting for CPG, aren't we? Yeah, we're currently recruiting for CPG. So keep an eye out. Amy will send a message somewhere, but we'll definitely advertise that somewhere. But yes, get yourself involved. Don't be shy. No one here is a terrible person. Like well, some places there could be terrible people, but just get involved, throw yourself in the deep end, have a bit of fun. Networking events are really important. Probably the best thing I did as a first year is probably join EQ Racing or Space. That was like a great, like a resume filler. Like a lot of firms loved what we did at Racing or Space. So I'd recommend joining them. Online courses, it's kind of dying. recommend doing basic Coursera courses, but if you want to learn ML, like some of the courses like $20, like $20 isn't too much based on the value you'll be getting back, so you can do those. Open source contributing is also really cool. If you get good at open source contributing, you can end up like my friend who's being flown to London to explain his LLVM contribution in front of Google. So I would recommend getting into open source contributing. It's a lot of fun. You get to learn what you want to learn. Now, penultimate. This is the crux of everything. This is your second to last year before graduating. Ideally, you would have started thinking about interview prepping by now. You would have done a few hackathons. You would have maybe done a part-time job at the uni or tried to tutor. You want to ideally have that sort of stuff done by then. The priority as a penultimate student, like the number one priority, is get a return offer. Because once you do the internship and you get a return offer, you don't have to apply for grad roles. You can just kick back. Well, not exactly kick back, but you can kind of kick back, finish your degree, have kind of like have a bit of fun, and then you can just graduate. You have a job lined up for you. You don't have to stress too hard. The stress is basically done once you get the return offer. Now, what's the best way you can, I guess, go about doing that? Don't be picky. Apply everywhere, even if you don't like that industry. It's better to have multiple offers than to have none. And if you're worried about, oh, what if I tell the other firm I don't want to work for them anymore? Most of them are fine with it. I've reneged like 4 offers, like tons of offers. And most of the time I just get an email back going, oh, it's okay. We'll love to have you another year. Like they're usually they understand it's the name of the game now. So, and the benefit of having multiple offers as well, you can use it as leverage for other firms. So a lot of firms, my recruiter particularly told me she favors candidates that have alternative offers because she understands they're hedging their bets. You want to ideally hedge your bets. You don't want to just apply to one place and pray for it. You want to have backups if anything goes wrong. So apply to everything. If you get multiple, just renege the ones you don't want and go to the one that you want. How do you prepare? You should have ideally done Comp 3506 by now. Extremely well-run course. Like Joel McKenzie is probably like one of the holy trinity goats of lecturers here. He's fantastic. I'd recommend doing Comp 3506. Very well explained. You want to start practicing interview questions. So you don't have to go hard in the paint. A question a day, 2 questions a day, more than enough. Just focus on understanding the question, understanding the data structures, understanding common techniques or common algorithms you might see, rather than memorizing questions as we have discussed before. So get good at system design, get good at some practice questions. If you're gearing for quant, I reckon getcrack.io is pretty decent for it. There's some pretty good, I think there's an audible question that I really liked on there. So if you're gearing for the quant side, I'd recommend jumping on getcrack.io, which we do have a discount, which I'll show you at the end of the slides. So some delayed gratification. Attend networking events. So go to every networking events, not just the UQCS ones. You can go to like barbecues like held by like EUS or something. There's a lot of firms that come down there. You can chat to them. They'll probably give you an offer. So go to all the networking events, get yourself out there. More than likely or not, you can get a role by just going to networking events and just, being known. A good strategy is if you're worried about, your dream company, getting rejected from your dream company, you can interview at like firms you're not too interested at that have a similar interview process, get a bit of practice, get some free feedback, and then use that feedback to then, practice on it and then apply to the firm that you really want. So would recommend doing that. Competitions are really big, like IMC, like for those of you going into quant, IMC Prosperity is probably the most talked about project on my resume. Would recommend doing it. You learn a lot. I learned most of my stuff quant related through Prosperity, so I'd recommend doing it. And another thing you can do, like similar to open source contributions, there's this thing called the Ravi's study program, which you can find online. It basically involves doing 10 leak codes and 2 mock interviews a week. And it kind of just helps you get in that like interview preparation, like sort of spirit. So there's a lot of platforms you can do it. You can choose between NeetCode, LeetCode, or Get Cracked. But with Get Cracked, you get access to that, the system knowledge questions as well, which could be quite relevant for some interviews. If you're in your final year, a little bit tricky. So you'll start applying for a lot of grad roles. Some grad roles, if you do read the job description, they do say you can either be in your final year of study or a year or 2 after graduation. So if you're not lucky in your final year, maybe do an honor. You're welcome to do an honors, or you can reapply a year after. So no stress. These are some of the things that you can do up there, so you can look at them, take a note of them. The tips are going to be exactly the same as penultimate. Get good at system design. Get good at some coding interviews. If you do not have experiences, little bit tricky. You can do the same thing as what we recommend to pre-penultimate and penultimate student, where you can do some hackathons, do some projects. You don't necessarily need an internship to get a grad role. I've seen people do it without an internship, but it helps. The more things that help, the easier the road is for you. Network heavy. So at a lot of the networking events, it's a lot easier for firms to hire grads. Because some of them could just go, oh, I have a slot right now. We will give me your phone number and email, and we'll run the background check, and you'll start in 2 weeks. So I'd recommend, yes, go to all the networking events. It will help you a lot. Same deal. Apply everywhere. Don't be picky. Now, John Doe has decided to come back, and he's quit McDonald's, surprisingly. I guess he didn't like flipping burgers anymore. He didn't put the fries in the bag. But John Doe decided to join EQ Space. So, obviously, as you can see, that's what we're talking about with quantifying your results. These are some, what you see in blue is kind of the things you would want to have by your penultimate year, in your resume, how to write a good resume. So, your LinkedIn and GitHub is up there. You have your grades on there. If you've joined a club, if you're welcome to do, not everyone has to do open source, but if you do choose to do open source, put it up there. It's really good. Highlight your summer projects, your hackathon projects, your leadership experience. Personally, I would you could put the leadership experience a little bit earlier up, before projects, because a lot of firms behaviorally assess rather than technically assess. So if you can demonstrate leadership, if you can demonstrate those qualities, a lot of firms want to keep you for the long run. So if you are a promising leader, they'll go, oh, great, after the grad program, this person will be a great senior engineer. So, do highlight your leadership experiences, but obviously we'll be sending the slides out. Don't worry about taking photos. This is kind of an overarching thing that you need. Few tips from me. So help each other network. As I said before, you're not alone. Talk to your friends. Ask someone to help you. Don't be shy. I know 9 times out of 10, everyone is happy to help you. No one gatekeeps things usually here at UQCS, or at least in the tech sphere. Me personally, I'm happy to do resume reviews. I'm happy to do mock interviews. I don't really care I don't gatekeep that sort of stuff, because it's a bit of a dick move to do it. But help each other, form a group of friends, work together. It's a lot easier if you guys work together than if you do it solo. So find a group of friends that want the same thing. Just go at it. Just have fun. You're in it for the long run. You fail together or you pass together, and it's a lot more fun when you fail or pass together. Same thing with connections. It's a bit of a trend I want to set with the CS community. Don't gatekeep connections. Let's not become like BAFE students where their only separating factor is who they know, because they're all basically cookie cutter, copy and paste examples of each other. If you have a good connection that you'd like to share with someone, share it with someone. Don't say, oh no, my connection, you can't talk to this person. No, that's a bit stupid. Of course, don't rely just on connections. Become someone that's competent. You want to become someone that's competent enough where if you go ask for a referral, they'll be more than happy to give it to you, rather than, if you're a little bit iffy, you're your grades aren't too good, or you're just not a good engineer in general, then maybe there might be a bit more hesitancy there. But you want to be, get to a basic competency level, get some friends, all will be better. Same thing with before, build on your behavioral skills. Ideally, just get good at talking to people, get good at conversing. It's probably the #1 skill I'd recommend to have when it comes to networking. The biggest trend that really pisses me off that I see with really smart people, or particularly second, third years, is they reject themselves before they apply. Let the companies do the damn rejecting, okay? Hit apply to everything. If you're getting rejected from everything, we'll go through a framework later on how to fix this. But don't go, hey, I'm not gonna apply. I'm not ready for this. Let them say you're not ready for this, okay? Apply to everything. Get that signal first, otherwise you won't know. I had a really smart friend The most cracked person I ever met. He does BAFE. He studies like stats for fun. He kept like he at one point he said, "Oh, I'm not ready to apply to quant till I do a physics PhD." I'm like, "No, what? Like just apply now." He applied now, and guess what? He just finished, one of Optiva's programs, and will likely get a grad offer from it. So let the companies do the rejecting. In the resume dot points, don't like a lot of people I found when I was giving resume feedback is that they were really shy. Like in the dot points, they'll go, "Oh, I did Python to like do this." It's like, no, you did more than Python. You talk about the framework you implemented. Don't be afraid to kind of like boast a little bit about what you did. Like, don't say like you're like the greatest of all time or something, but like, go deep with the detail of the resume dot points. Don't be shy about including all the detail about what you've done. This is a question I'm going to get later on. Imposter syndrome can be real. So as you're like trying to get these sort of offers and you're like kind of comparing yourself to people, you might feel like you're not worthy of like certain achievements, or like you're not worthy to apply to certain places. When you do something good, when you get a prize, when you complete a project, do pat yourself on the back. Like, do say, yes, I did this. I'm very proud of what I did. Because it could get mentally draining if you constantly go, this is not enough, this is not enough, I'm terrible, I'm terrible. Do pat yourself on the back. And as I said before, fall in love with the journey and not the destination. Now, I'm going to clarify some very common myths about the computer science program. I'll try and blitz through it as much as I can, but basically, these are some common things I hear about the program, some common things first years ask me, and we'll clarify like all of them right now. So the first one, the biggest one, the job market. Is no one getting jobs? No, like people are getting jobs as much as the internet is sending you reels and whatever you're seeing online. I will admit it's a tighter market. It's not as free hiring as it used to be. It just self-corrected. Employers are more selective. It's an employer's market. They're more comfortable. They're more selective with who they're choosing to come in. The biggest thing I want you to take away, it's not the market's fault you don't get a job. It's your fault. If you got rejected, if you constantly get rejected, it's a competency failure on your part. You need to see why you're getting rejected. And then I do have a framework you can use to figure out what's going on. But you do want to be more self-reflective. Why do I say this? Although it sounds like a bit harsh, it's easier to blame something you can control than something you cannot control. Because if you keep blaming the market, you don't control the market. So if you keep blaming that thing, you'll be infinitely depressed. You'll be like, nothing's changing. Oh my God, this is crap. I'm going to drop out of CS. But if you can blame yourself, you can change yourself. You can become better. You can become smarter. You can have more stuff on your resume. So it's a lot healthier to blame yourself and like progressively get better. Once you reach an inflection point that you'll start getting offers, then blaming something you have zero control over, and it'll just make you like really miserable. Are there less internships? Yes. I'll admit, a lot of firms have cut hiring. So particularly for grad and intern, doesn't mean no one's getting an internship. It just means my previous point before, you have to be competitive in this market. The average CS student usually doesn't do anything till graduation. They have no exec roles, no projects, no nothing. Probably sitting around like passing a 4.0 GPA. Not very competitive in today's market, especially with an influx, like a massive influx of like CS undergraduates coming in. And the key thing I want to know, a CS degree doesn't guarantee a job. Your skill set does. Focus less on the degree, focus more on what can you provide. Do you want to specialize in ML? Do you want to specialize in HPC? Do you want to specialize in backend development? You want to focus on what you can bring to the world rather than I did a degree, hire me, please. I should be entitled to a job. No, you want to focus more on I am good at these things and I can do these things for you. So develop a wide skill set. Focus less on your coursework and degree, and instead on the frameworks. Why is everyone getting laid off? It's just part of being in the services industry. Unless you're like a doctor, where the only way you can get laid off is if you kill someone. Being in the services industry is just a supply and demand thing. So maybe there's less of a demand for software engineers, therefore there's less need to hire them, but there is a very high demand for competent software engineers. So I would recommend the more competent you become, the more people will be frothing at the mouth wanting to hire you. So focus on yourself, try and don't blame things you can't control. Is a CS degree worth it? I can't answer that. It's up to you as a person to decide that. I can't say yes or no. You decide based on your personal morals and values and where you want to go, whether the program is right for you. So fields like CS, basically almost any field nowadays requires continuous learning. If you're looking for a degree where, you know, that degree kind of like guarantees you a job and you can just kick your legs back and you don't have to study ever again, I don't think a lot of degrees are in that campfire. So particularly in the software world, you have to be open-minded. You have to constantly learn and be open to learning new things. And I reckon that will take you a very, very far way. The key thing I want to highlight, the bachelor, it just simply invites firms to know you kind of know your stuff. However, having one isn't enough to guarantee to employers that you're a decent problem solver. Now, is it the market's fault or AI's fault? I don't have a role. It's similar to like what I described before. It's the worst thing you can have. Blame something you have control over. Grades. Do you need a high GPA? Yes and no. Some roles mandate like a high GPA. Some roles don't care. So if you're gunning for HFT or something, aim for a 6. If you're, you know, just aiming for anything in general, you know, if you stay above a 5, you'll be more than fine. If you're above a 6, you don't have to worry about GPA screening at all. Like you pass through all of it. Do keep in mind about grade inflation. A majority of people, the bell curve is shifting away from the 4 being the average to, you know, the average is around like a 5.5 or a 5. So do be wary that grade inflation is happening and firms have been increasing their requirements year on year. What happens if you failed a course? That's okay. Some people, a lot of uni students do fail courses. Comebacks always happen as long as you approach it with an open mentality. Be open, like look at why you failed, and then take that feedback on, apply it onto the next course. This is probably the most annoying one I get from first years. Do I need LeetCode to do a job? No, hell no. You need to understand how to solve problems is the underlying issue. Get good at the common patterns. Don't slave it. If you have to slave it, it means there's something wrong with your fundamental understanding of data structures and algorithms or your problem solving. My advice to that is, you know, get exposed to more problems, approach them with an open mind. Maybe just know your DSA fundamentals really good or your system design fundamentals really good. And as I said, 80% of jobs don't require LeetCode. You can get a lot of internships without having to do LeetCode. Where should you start? First years, maybe hold off on the LeetCode a little bit. I mean, you're welcome to jump on getcracked.io if you want to build some systems knowledge, but be comfortable with your programming language first and foremost. Be comfortable with syntax. If you want to learn DSA, Abdul Bari is a legendary lecturer when it comes to explaining data structures and algorithms. You can look at his YouTube playlist, and from there, you can kind of build up your DSA skills. Watch that first, then maybe start doing LeetCode. See if you can apply what you learned in the videos to LeetCode. Now, the second most annoying question that I get, how many questions do I need to do? As much as you damn need to. You don't need 500 questions to get a job. You simply need to do enough where you're confident with most of the, I guess, common paradigms you might see, whether, you know, it's BFS, DFS, graphs, sliding windows, etc. Just be comfortable with the common patterns. You don't need to do 500 plus problems. And similarly, many firms are going to system design. So the focus more, it becomes more apparent to get really good at problem solving rather than just memorizing these problems. And what resources can you do? Of course, as we said, LeetCode. InterviewDB is basically a lot of people, like any leaked questions get put on InterviewDB. So it's like $30 a month. And before you have like a particular round with a particular firm, you can see the common questions they've asked in the past year. Have a crack at those. You will have a rough idea of what to expect. Get cracked, as we said before, and then obviously go at your own pace. Internship FOMO. Do I need an internship to get a grad role? No. They're basically just trialing you before they buy you. What happens if you don't get a return offer? It's okay. Move on to the next firm. You know, you can extend your degree. You know, move on to the next thing. Don't worry, it's not the end of the world. Many people don't get return offers. It's okay. Now, this is the framework I was talking about here on the right-hand side. You're getting rejected. What do? Are you not getting OAs? Your resume kind of sucks. It's a bit too shallow, or maybe your structure is not very good, or the template you're using is not very good. So maybe systematically go through your resume. It's like, okay, do I have a GPA that's not high enough for the role? Let's bump up my GPA, try again. Did that fix it? Great. If not, let's get some more projects. Let's get, you know, some more things to show that I like doing what I like doing. Template is also very important, as we said. if you're getting the OAs and not passing, it means you're either getting resume screened again, because some screen after the OA, or your performance wasn't very good. So just get better at OAs. Not passing technical interviews. So of course, practice more. Usually they will give you feedback after a technical interview. So practice more. I reckon the best thing you can do, instead of failing and leak code slaving again, do a mock interview. You can get some detailed feedback from a friend and then just work through that. Just go through that. If you're not passing behaviorals, very likely you're just a cultural mismatch. So your communications skills weren't very good, or your experiences that you've decided to talk about in the interview weren't a match for that particular firm's roles. So say it's like a back-end role and you're talking about ML, they'll probably go, oh, I'd rather hire someone who's focused on back-end. So, you probably got off the wrong foot. Research the company, get good at communication, go from there. This is also equally as annoying. Is AI replacing entry-level roles? No, not really, as much as people would like you to believe. The role of a software engineer is you're moving away from hard coding to architecting. Most of your job is going to be architecting. You're going to go, here's a problem. Let's divide this problem into sub-problems. I'm going to do this for this for this, and this connects to this, and this is the framework I'll use. It's very system design focused, and AI kind of helps with the coding side of it. Obviously, the more lower level your job is, the more coding you'll do. So if you're, particularly like in defense and whatnot, if you're working with C and C++ or electronics, you'll do a lot of you're still architecting, but there's a lot, it's not good at C++. You'll have to get really good personally at C++. Now, the other thing as well, because of AI, the bar is higher. You need to show more data points to why you're valuable to a firm. They're not just going to hire you because you know Python. It's like, okay, what can you do with Python is what you want to focus on. Get acquainted with how to use AI. A lot of firms are now assessing how you use AI. It's become an accessible metric in your performance reviews. Don't be stubborn and say, oh, I'm never using AI. Get familiar. Like if you don't want to use it, okay, great, that's fine. Just get familiar with its strengths, its weaknesses, go from there. You don't have to use it, but if you go to a firm and you have to use it, at least you know where like Claude sucks and where it exceeds. How should you use AI at uni? First years, try and stay away from it as much as you can. Get familiar with the tool and its limitations. Please, for the love of, look, as a tutor, I hated seeing this. I've seen people give it the spec and just type implement this for me. Don't do that. Please don't do that. You will not learn anything. You can give it the spec, but you can go, explain to me, how do I do this? How do I do that? What does this constraint mean? What does that mean? How do I implement this? Divide it into sub-problems. Never get it to do the whole thing. You need to think first before you give it the thing, which leads to my next point. The bottom line with everything I've said, if you cannot think for yourself, then no one would want to hire you. You'd want to become someone that firms want to pay money to fix their problems to. So the better you get at problem solving, the more people would want you. Don't offshore your thinking to AI. It's extremely, extremely dangerous. Now, some popular cheat codes you can probably implement. These are some cool things I found, I guess, in the 3 years I've been here. If you do have multiple offers, you can tell the firms that you're shopping around, and typically they will move you to further stages. So you'll go to final round, maybe second final round. They will maybe increase the salaries. And as I said before, recruiters see it as a positive signal if you have multiple offers. Who here knows about the GPA reset trick? Very few. Okay. Did you guys know when you change your degree from single to dual, or any change to your degree completely resets your cumulative GPA? So if you completely bummed your first year, you can say, let's go through an example. Say you're doing like comp sci. We have an example right here. You're doing comp sci commerce. You got like a 4 in your first year, not doing pretty well. You can drop the CS. Cumulative GPA goes to 0. Lock in that first semester. Just continue on your current plan. Try and complete your BCS subjects. You can genuinely get straight 7s that sem. Call yourself a 7 GPA on your resume. And then, well, guess what? You now have a 7 GPA. You can apply to everything that year. So that is the GPA reset trick. I will preface, if you're doing an honors degree or a degree that has an honors, your honors GPA is never reset. Your honors GPA counts every course that counts to the honors degree since the start of UQ, since you're enrolled in UQ. So if you're aiming for first class, just because you got to, like, if you reset your GPA and you have a 7, but if you had 4s all the years before, you're not getting first class. So I would say, if you're aiming, like it doesn't reset your honors GPA. And also on your official transcript, there's no cumulative GPA. So every semester and the respective semester GPA will be on there. If you're in post, like another trick you can do is postgrad. So say you're in your penultimate year and you're not having much success, you can, in your final year, you can say you're doing honors or you have the intention to do honors and therefore extend your degree by a year and then your penultimate again. So you can go for internships a second time. Now, say you don't want to change degrees and whatnot and do the whole reset GPA circus dance, you can use weighted average mark. The way that's calculated, and the safest way to do that, sum up the final percentage you get at the end of each course after grade release, and then use that number in your resume. So we have a case here. So course 1 is, say you got a 5, but you got 74. You are 1 mark away from a 6. Course 2, you got a 64. You are 1 mark away from a 5. You get the pattern. That's why we don't like the GPA system. Again, you got a 74. Oh, you finally got a 7, and now you're at 85. Blah, blah, blah. You add them together, divide by the number of the courses, that's your WAM. So a 76 WAM is considered a distinction, but your GPA is a 5.4. That's not a distinction average. So you can choose to use one or the other. If you find like you're getting close to the particular mark but not getting it, you can use WAM to kind of circumvent that. I personally don't consider this lying because you are using your real course grades and calculating a grade out of it. The second one is a little bit sussy. You take your current GPA and divide it by 7 and holy, it suddenly inflates it to a distinction average. This one's a bit sussy. I personally am not comfortable with WAM 2, but WAM 1 is a lot better. So WAM is a good way to get around the grade requirements for firms that require you to be above a certain grade. Taking courses with projects. If you're struggling to get projects, there are courses that basically have projects embedded into them. You can write a LinkedIn post about it. You can put it on your resume. Like imagine if you do all these courses, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 projects to put on your resume. 30, for the CS students in the room, or even if you do software eng, 3801 will be your capstone one. That's probably one of the nicest ones you'll get to write. But as you can see, we have a list of courses here that you can choose between, and they could probably help you get stuff on your resume. I do want to preface, your CSSC 1001 assignment is not a project. Please don't put that on your resume. You can if you really wanted to, but these are very different. These are more full-length, full-scale projects, in my opinion. This one, a little bit sussy. Say you're in a very ambitious first and second year. You're not penultimate. You really want that internship. What you could do, this is a lot better with dual degrees, and particularly if you're 1 year away from penultimate. So if you're a first year in a 4-year degree, maybe don't do it. But basically what happens is you push your graduation date forward 1 year, and you can apply to these internships as a penultimate student. The reason, particularly if you're doing a dual degree, this isn't really lying, is because once you get the return offer, most firms will do one or two things. They're happy to push your grad role 1 year into the future, like an extra year into the future, because you've worked for them for 3 months. They don't want to lose you. They've spent all this money on you. They like you. They want to keep you. They'll do actually one of 3 things. They'll push your grad year back 1 year. They'll give you a return internship. So some firms might tell you, come back another internship. Particularly Optiver does this. So I have 3 more years left in my degree. And if I do get a return, they'll say just come back every year. Like it's no stress. And the other thing they might ask you, which is probably the nuclear option, they'll ask you to accelerate your degree. So I've heard of some big tech firms doing this, where they'll ask you, okay, we need you to graduate by, push your graduation year a bit forward. Now, the reason with dual degrees, it's a lot easier. If you get a return offer at a firm you really like, you can drop the other dual degrees. So say you're doing comp sci commerce, you're set to graduate in 2028, but you say you're graduating 2027. Now you're penultimate this year. You get an internship, you got the return offer, they already like you. You try and ask first for an extension. If they can't extend, you drop the second component of your dual, and now you're suddenly penultimate. So a lot of people I've found do this, particularly CS math. So a lot of my quant researcher friends, they do CS math. And then what happens is they get the return offer, they drop the CS component, finish the math component, and then they start working full time. I will say my only advice against this is don't rush your uni experience. Have fun. You know, don't be in such a rush to work full time. There's a lot of fun to be had at uni, so don't stress about it too much. But as I said, if you're a first year in a 4-year program, a lot of recruiters, like when you tell them this, they'll go naughty, naughty. You know, we'll just push your graduate 1 year. But if you're a first year, they'll go, oh crap, like you full on lied. Like I would not recommend doing this if you're a first year out of a 4-year program. Now the other one, if you guys didn't know, prerequisites are not enforced at UQ. You can take your courses in any order you wish. I took mine in roughly reverse order. So, or actually out of order is more accurate. Basically, if you have, why should you do this? If you want to do a course you have a particular interest in, you can basically skip the prereqs, try and self-learn them on the way, and build, I guess, the skill set you need that you want to develop. So particularly, I did Stat 3006 in my first year because I just really wanted to get good at ML, but it was very dangerous because I was studying 12 hours a day, and it was miserable hell. But I loved it, and I loved being in miserable hell. Basically, I developed a really good data science foundation and skill set early on, and then suddenly offers started to trickle down. Like I went to my data science internship and I basically knew like unsupervised ML algorithms, and they went, oh, you have the knowledge of a grad, holy crap. Well, obviously it's a 3rd-year course meant to be taken like roughly in the last year of your degree. So I'd recommend doing it. Makes it easy to get return offers because you come in with prerequisite knowledge, you can smurf it, get it out of the way, get that return offer. And the other thing as well, because you can take it in any order, if you know a particular course is like a GPA nuke, maybe push it to your final year. Any engineers in the room? I'm doing Eng 1100 in my final year. I'm not touching that subject, bro. I'm not risking like a bad group project. So as you can see, you can take it in any order you want. Comp 3506, take it as early as you can. It's really good. For those of you that were in my Deco 3801 team, you would know what this GIF is about because the course coordinator tried to asked me nicely to leave the course because you can only take 3801 in your final year. And I just, in 3 email chains, said no. So this meme is quite popular within my group. To close this off, CJ has been really kind to sponsor this talk. So if you're after a subscription to getcracked.io and you want to build your interview skills, we do have 20% off your first subscription. I think the code might expire in a couple of days. So if you are interested, take a photo of it, subscribe as much as you can. You can do it to the annual plan and you can save a lot of money. But I'd personally like to thank CJ for sponsoring this talk. We reached the end. Yes, Tyrese? Oh, yep. Any questions? Or otherwise, I'm happy to grab, you guys hungry? I'm happy to grab pizza and you can ask me questions there. Cool. Let's get pizza.